Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m., Thursday, June 30th, 2022. This is a special council meeting in the city of Miller Beach, Florida. First, we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patty, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Frank Banker.
Present.
Councilmember Leslie Notero.
Here.
Councilmember Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Zabel.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here. Okay, before we get started, if Councilmember Shirley, because we don't have anyone that's manning the Zoom app, just kind of butt in. This is more of an informal meeting, even though it's a special council meeting. We're going to treat it more like a work session, so I just wanted to get that out first. Okay, we have two items on the agenda. The first one is to discuss the selection process of city manager candidates. I don't believe this takes a motion because we're not actually voting on anything. In our last meeting, we left this discussion. We had several questions about how to handle the selection process of city manager candidates. And we've had some correspondence from Vice Mayor Gunn, and then we also have our list of 7 council members. With that being said, since we have this new information that Glenn Gunn has shared with us, I'm going to hand it over to Glenn and let us know what you were thinking.
Well, my whole purpose in building the matrix was just so that people could look at it in perspective of everybody at the same time. You know, it can get a little harrowing when you just kind of look at one resume in front of you. And to be able to kind of look as you're looking at a resume, you can kind of get the whole perspective of how everybody is rated in the same category. I just thought it would help out and make things easier. That was the only reason I built that matrix.
And did you find anyone in the list that you thought was a shining star in the group?
I think there are some extremely well-qualified people there. I looked below the line. I think everybody submitted, or 2 people submitted an extra name. And I think there were some things either kind of brushed over or looked over, or I think some people probably went in and Googled the names and some jobs and cities and kind of took a little bit more interest in what all was being said and didn't rely just on what was on in the resumes. So based on that, I think a lot of the names still float to the same 5 top. But I think after I did a little extra research, I kind of reorganized it a little bit. So I don't know how you want to proceed.
All right, council?
Yeah, read through every resume, Googled most of the names, and I'm still coming back down to the same, breakdown. I've taken a look at the matrix. Frankly, I like that because to me, you got to show initiative throughout your career. You just can't do it once and say, I'm qualified. You got to keep pursuing qualifications and currencies, no different from what we did going up to Jacksonville for classes. But utilizing the search committee, using this, I'm still coming down to a natural break. It's about 8 names total. Underneath that, failing to see any qualifications that really stood out to me.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'll come back around and
Okay, that's okay. Mr. Roberts?
Well, one of my concerns after the meeting we had last I know Glenn was mentioning about maybe we need to slow down a little bit. My biggest concern, I've had a lot of experience in this, is that, sometimes, the bird in the hand, two in the bush thing, the longer you put this off, we may come to a conclusion with regards to who we think is the best, only to find out when we make a phone call, they've already found another job. So we need to be very careful about that. If we have good qualified candidates, I think we should not slow down. I think we should move forward and with the candidates we have. Because I don't really know if there's anything really compelling out there that would make me think that, well, there's 2 or 3 other hugely strong candidates out there that for some reason they haven't come forward now, but they will later. That's just my feeling. So I think we should move forward with the process and the timeline that we had originally talked about.
Thank you. Councilmember Shirley, did you have any comments?
My only thought process is I think that it does warrant the opportunity to bring in a consultant or someone with HR expertise to help us with the selection process, and maybe maybe there's candidates that didn't find our posting, maybe there's an opportunity to use a headhunter. I'm just kind of floating some ideas, but the main reason is, while I've hired many people in the past, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert in the HR department and that I think that I can make the right selection. This is a government position, it's a city management position. I think we've got an opportunity to make a good selection, and we need to exercise that opportunity rather than making a quick decision just for the sake of making a quick decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this councilwoman wants to reopen accepting applications now, because we had a deadline of the close date. The way I took her comments was we should now explore other candidates, or reach out to other candidates. I mean, this has been going on since, March? Thank God none of us work for NASA, or Apollo 13 would be by Pluto by now. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I want to make a comment, but I want to make sure everyone else goes before I do. Do you have any?
I would be in favor of the council moving forward with the plan we had. We've got plenty, a good number of very qualified candidates. Some of them have different kinds of experiences in different environments. They have pluses and minuses on all of them. But I think that the council should go forward and interview the top candidates.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Can I just say?
yes, sir.
I agree with what Lloyd's saying in a measured pace. From the last hiring process, my biggest takeaway was that people got the impression, candidates got the impression that the city was just going through the motions and checking the boxes. Due diligence, right? That they knew where they were going with this thing and they were just checking the boxes. And we had some really well-qualified people withdraw from the process because it's like, well, I see it was on the list there, and yeah, it's not worth my time. I know where this is going. I've seen it 100 times before. So I think it's worth the time to make effort and go through the process really well. And in that vein, what I would say is, rather than, and this is a suggestion or a recommendation, is rather than try to go through a lot of time right now of trying to rank order these guys and narrow it down to 5. We've got 7 that we kind of all agree on. Why don't we just go round 1 of the interviews, interview all of the candidates, and get a first impression of these guys. Everybody can get a first impression, how they look, how they speak, are they articulate, what did they have to say, did they have anything to add to their resume that they thought was of value? And then let's go ahead and go through the first round and try to rank these and narrow it down. Why not get them all on a Zoom interview? I mean, it's a relatively painless process. And let's see them and talk to them for the first round.
I'd be kind of against how they look. I mean, that could be discriminatory in a lot of ways.
Okay, I'd like to speak on this, and then we'll go around again. You stole my thunder for sure. I was pretty much on track with what you just said. Unfortunately, I think that we have stalled so long that probably some, if not all of the candidates have lost interest in us. It may turn out that if we reached out to the 8 candidates that are now on the list, it was 7. If we reached out to the 7 and we said we'd like to do a Zoom interview, we may not even have 3 or 4. I spoke with all of the mayors at the Big C and discussed their process, and they all said that various municipalities are scrambling to find city managers. I also spoke with Mike Twitty about this, and he said you have to grab them up as soon as you can and immediately interview them. And we may have missed the ball on this, I'm not sure. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and do what Vice Mayor Gunn suggested, which is let's go ahead and call them and let's have an interview with them, a first impression, and then we meet after those interviews and we see if we can narrow it down to 1 or 2 that we bring in. We should have already done this, but we stalled for a week. We've not lost a lot of time, but we may have lost the candidates. My recommendation would be that if we did lose the candidates, that maybe we do another RFP, start the process over again, but this time be more expedient with the way that we do it. Sort through the list, rank them again, and then immediately call them in and let's meet them. And let's see if we can move forward. If the council does not agree with that process, maybe it would be in the city's best interest to bring in a consultant. But I think we've all worked with city managers. We know what we expect, and we know the personality that works well with us, and I think that it would be something that we should be able to do on our own. That's my thoughts.
I would agree with you. I'd say, let's go forward and interview the top 6, or at least have Patty contact the top, whether it's the 7 or 8 people, and say, hey, we're up to first interview things. Are you still interested? Let's do it. If we get 8 of them, great. If we get 5 of them, okay. There's nothing to be gained by waiting.
Right. And I went through the list, and everyone is slightly different,
Yeah.
but they're all very qualified. And they have great backgrounds, long histories, and they know how municipalities work. So I didn't see anyone that I would be against working with. Now, once I meet them, that may be a different story. But first impressions on paper, they all look great, and that's why they made it to the top 7. Anyone else like to make a comment?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that process. Came in here today, it's basically the same thing. I'm going to just grab the top 7. To me, all very well qualified. Again, like I said, read all the other resumes, and those are the ones that stick out. If we could possibly call tomorrow, prior to the holiday, and see what we can do that next week. I don't know what the schedules are for anybody, but potentially scheduling a special work session for those interviews.
It may be difficult because it's a holiday weekend, but I don't know why we couldn't make a phone call. Patty?
Mayor, I won't be here tomorrow.
Oh, you're off tomorrow, so definitely that's out.
Can you call from home?
If we make a phone call to these 7 or 8 candidates, are we going to tell them what we're going to pay them before they go through this process of interview?
Well, I think it would be only fair for us to give them the range that we're working with.
I agree.
And if it turns out that someone is just a rock star, it may be negotiable. But we already sort of have it in our budget what we're planning on paying. And think it's in our best interest to stick with that. And that range, salary range may very well rule out several of the candidates.
And I'm just saying, before they take time to interview on Zoom or whatever like that, say, we're paying, what are we paying? We're willing to pay, what, 106,000, or what is it? Up to 106 or 110?
We'll have that up there.
It bounced around.
But it gives them a chance to self-select, and
Yeah.
they may say, you know, I want to go back there, I'm going to relax.
Well, some of these guys are making
Not my salary.
125 and up, you know, and I don't know if they're going to take a pay cut to come here, you know.
Councilmember Roberts, you want to?
Yeah, I think great plan, and I think we should move forward with it as quickly as possible. The consulting firm, otherwise known as headhunters, from my experience, typically works in, let's say, a very large city, like Fort Lauderdale, where they're putting this out there, and they're hoping to actually recruit people that have existing jobs because they're offering $190,000 a year, and people will leave their current job as a city manager to do that. We're not in that ballgame. So we're kind of at the bottom, so to spend money on a recruiting firm, a headhunting company, I don't think it really fits our needs here. So, and I think we have good candidates, so we're all good.
And I think the right candidate would be willing to possibly take reduced pay to work in a laid-back, very calm, generally generally calm community where we're relatively simple to manage. So
In Miami Beach, you can do Bel Air Beach,
that's
you
right.
know?
Welcome to Mayberry.
Vice Mayor Dunn?
Yeah, I'm on board with the discussion of the salary range, but I just want to ensure we don't give them the impression that we're hard and fast on that. That it is a situational kind of thing, and if there's something you bring to the table that maybe we didn't see, and maybe there is room for negotiation there, but I don't want to poison the well and say, hey, this is our salary range, take it or leave it. If you're not interested, fine. Because I think there are people out there who are willing to come to Mayberry Beach and kick back, and I don't know that. And you raise a valid point that we need to file away if this goes to Plan B, where we need to resume the searches. The thing that a recruiter brings to the table is they go out and they recruit people in jobs who are already in an existing job. We're not just narrowing down the market to people who are sitting around waiting for a job.
Well, we use a recruiter, what are we going to be paying the recruiter? Most of them charge anywhere from 5 to 15% of the candidate's wage for anywhere from 6 to 12 months. So that's another cost.
That's true. I'm hoping that that's like Plan C.
I hope it's Plan Z.
Exactly.
I agree.
But I say that we move forward with the original plan, except rather than trying to select 4 or 3 out of the group, we just call them all. Because at the end of the day, that's probably what we're going to line up with anyway, is those 3 or 4 pieces.
This is just a meeting. Can I make a motion that we go forward and have Patty contact the top?
That will be the next. That will be the next agenda.
Discuss and then continue.
Councilmember Shirley.
I'm in agreement. I mean, let's try to get them in and get this thing moving along. I don't want to sit here and keep rehashing the same discussion. But, you know, if we're not able to secure someone of these, you know, top 8 candidates, then we have to be open-minded to using a recruiting firm.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
I think we're all on board on which way this is going. If we interview these people via Zoom, maybe just have a quick discussion of the format, how long it's going to last. I don't think we're talking about a group set of people on the same screen. We'll probably talk individual ones maybe for 15 or 30 minutes.
That's right. And what we would try to do is squeeze, it depends on how many. I would say more than 4 or 5, we would need to spread it over 2 evenings. But I see no reason why we can't do this quickly.
Going to be individually, or are they going to be on like some Zoom meeting, each have 6 sets? Because what I'm saying is when you interview one,
Right.
another one's writing down notes.
They're going to be separate. Okay. We'll make sure of that.
So the other one's going to be overtime.
We'll just have, we'll have a scheduled time and whoever is operating Zoom, if it's not added, then we will just turn them off and on so that they can't hear each other. Okay, That means that the schedule, as it stands right now, today is the 30th, and that was supposed to be, let's see, what is it for interesting? Let's see, the regular council meeting agenda pack, which we're not doing that anymore. So right now, we were to review, we're only 1 week late, and it sounds to me like the review process has already happened, and are we sticking with the original 7? Is everybody good with that?
I'm fine with the 7.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
And Vice Mayor, you added an 8th just because that was the next score. Is that what?
Yeah, that was just the next highest score, right? I mean, I had actually looked further down, and I don't know if anybody else looked at this person named Marsh. That was the only one other name that I found.
Not in the same group as these people.
I'm trying to think of this name. I'm good to go with this.
Okay, all right. So if that's the case, that ends agenda item number 1. Now let's move on to agenda item 2, which was to continue the selection process of eligible candidates. I believe we just did that, but we're going to need a motion to send those candidates to Patty to be contacted.
I amend the motion to add in the salary range we're talking about.
At the salary range, okay. And that's with the initial phone call?
Yes.
Everybody good with that?
We'd have to put one more item on there is, this is not a hard and fast range.
Situation.
I just can't leave it at that. You give them a range, they can select themselves or not select themselves, but at least they got a range going.
Well, if we tell them 110,000 max, and the guy's making 150 now, I don't think, if he's educated enough to take this job, I think it will be $40,000.
No, but sometimes people will actually back the salaries down. I noticed that in a few cases, people took, I think it was 160, and they went down to about 120 a year for their next job.
I would agree with you maybe a year or two ago, but not Joe Biden. Okay, inflation the way it is.
Okay, so you just tried to amend a motion that's not been made. So I need an initial motion to send these candidates to Patty. And my recommendation would be to make that motion with the criteria that we give her. So if we just make it a simple motion, somebody second it, we'll vote for it, and then we will hand her the list of 11 with a stipulation that as you're speaking with them, that you will give them the salary range, and that we would be interested in having a Zoom conversation with them.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we forward 7 days, not 11 days.
No, I'm sorry. I said 11. It's because it starts with 11, but it is 7
Okay.
candidates.
I would like to make a motion that we forward the top 7 names to Patty to call to start the interview process.
Okay, I think we already had a first motion. So would you like to second?
I would like to second his
Okay,
motion.
great. All right.
Now you do it.
Okay, now we go to council, and then we need to go to the citizens, because I did not give them the opportunity to speak.
I have a question about the motion. Does it have the salary range in it?
Yes. We'll pass that off to Patty. We have that published somewhere.
That's part of the motion that we forward you.
Express it better than I, so. I'll go with his expression on how to do it.
Okay, we've kind of already discussed this. Would any other council members like to speak before I call on the citizens? No? Citizen comments? No? All right, back to the council.
hey Dave,
Yes?
I've had my hand raised for quite some time, it's Jody. So, just could we, because it seems like every time the question of salary range comes up, no one knows what that range is. Do we have a salary range?
We actually published it on the job description, which I do not have in front of me.
Are you sure? I thought it said depends on,
Yeah, I don't think it has.
salary range and benefits depend on qualifications, experience, and professional credentials.
That was the ad that was placed.
Okay, so what was the next one?
That was on the website.
Pardon?
I was told it was on the website, and actually.
I was told it was amended on the website.
The job description, I think it's
On the job description on the website.
Okay. Before you leave, Patty, we will get you that information that's published. I know it's published somewhere. It's just not in the paperwork that I have for looking through the candidates.
So I guess back to the point, is it, I don't want to eliminate someone that may be slightly out of our range, who might bring enough to the table that it makes sense to pay them a little more. And none of us seem to have that committed to memory, so it certainly doesn't seem like it's that important. I mean, I hate to be flip about it, but I'm going, if it's that important, then one of you that keep insisting that we publish it or make that a criteria for an interview, maybe should know what that number is.
I'm pulling the website up as we speak.
So am I.
I mean, I have Lynn's number. That's-
Yeah, Jody, when you said recall from memory, I'm pretty confident it was like 90 to 115, if I'm not mistaken. 85 to 90 as the base, 115 as the top of the range. Pretty sure that's what it was. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
I'm looking on the website, and then, can you tell me where it is on the website?
Do you see the job advertisement on the website?
No, I'm
No.
not seeing it.
I don't see anything except Lynn Reed's face.
Yeah, and then the job
That's the city manager.
description, but I don't see the,
Yeah, I don't see any salary in that, that's what I
I
was
see
looking.
it, right here, let's see here. No, unfortunately, it never was updated. I'm looking at it right now.
I don't think as a body, we ever sat down with the three different numbers, set the numbers ranges that we came up with. Because we had Lynn Reed's guesstimate, we had the city stats estimate, and then there was one third one. And they were all ballpark, but we never sat down as a body and went through all three and said, this is it. So,
Don't you think we should do that?
and/or at this point, we just was not discussing.
Well,
We can give a projection. I mean, the range was at the bottom end of all three, just, and I can pull this up when I get home, because I don't have it. Well, as a matter of fact, I need to have it on the computer. But it's probably like 85 to 110, 115 range. And the Lynn Reed's guesstimate was really ballpark, because I think it was like 92.
They're all similar.
Yeah, they're all basically.
they were all in that range, and I didn't hear any pushback on the high or the low whenever we were having these conversations. But I think one of the reasons why we were reluctant to post it was because there may be somebody that immediately we would want, but immediately they would not want us because of the amount of money that we published we were willing to pay. But for some reason, I know I heard that it was on the website, but it's not.
I did not see it. Did you find it on the website?
I found the job posting, but the salary range was never on there.
If my memory serves me correctly, when we were discussing the interim increase, that fell within the bottom of the salary range. And then I made a suggestion was we hired him, gave him 5%, it's still, I think, $4,000 under the top. So, discuss. So, as Mr. Gunn said, I really believe we had it maxed at 110, of course, always lowers.
Well, we have a motion on the table right now to move forward, or someone can amend with a salary range to give to Patty.
I'd like to make a motion for the max, I don't believe in minimums, but the maximum salary range, looking at this, is $123,000 per year. The reason I came up with that is, I started out with 115, around that max, but I'm factoring in the 10% inflation and the fact job market, because I started looking around when I started reading through these. We're not the only city, obviously, out there. You tend to see the same little posse applying for each job. You know, the same three names kind of pop up on each side. But that's my figure, and I'm 123K.
So,
And that is not looking at the budget and affordability. It's,
so your amended motion would be for Patty to contact the candidates and announce that we have a salary cap of $123,000, but the salary you would be offered is based upon your qualifications.
yes.
Second that.
Yeah, he says it there.
Okay, so now the amended motion, we have a second. Would anyone like to comment on that motion?
I'm
Should we
against-
have voted on the first one before we start amending?
No, because we have, the motion was on the table, and then a motion was made to amend that motion. If the amendment passes, then we'll go back to the original and we'll vote on that one.
Okay.
Under Robert's rules, the discussion was what is the salary range?
Right.
We never had a fixed salary, so we're not amending the salary range because we never had.
Right, exactly. So, before I pass it off to the citizens, would anyone like to make a comment?
I am not in favor of putting any sort of a salary number in the contact that Patty has with the candidates. I mean, leave it, the salary range depends on each qualifications, experience, and professional credentials. You know, let them sell us on their qualifications, credentials, etc. I would not put it in at this point.
My thoughts are leaning that direction also. And the reason why is because if someone is applying to work at Bel Air Beach, they may want an easier lifestyle, a job that's less hassle, easier to manage, and they may already know that they're going to take a pay cut for a better life. Now, I can't guarantee that, but I can tell you in my past, I took a serious pay cut once
Used to call it sunshine pay.
just to get off the road. And so, so it was well worth it to me. But Councilmember Shirley, do you have any comments on that?
Well, I agree with you completely. I'm not in favor of putting it in there, but at some point we gotta vote and move on. So what are we voting on? And let's, I say, do the vote, you know?
Well,
And then
currently
that doesn't-
we have a motion to amend the original motion with an exact salary cap listed. We can vote and move it forward, or we can vote it down, and then we go back to the original motion where we never actually defined a salary. We were trying to figure out exactly what to tell Patty to say, and who to contact. Vice
Okay,
Mayor
let's
Dunn.
vote.
I'm in agreement with Leslie, I guess, now I've kind of been swaying a little bit. I don't want to poison the well. Let's see who's out there, and whether or not they're interested in what we can negotiate. Let's let them tell us, market us.
I think what you're saying is we don't know what we don't know, right?
But the problem is, like Leslie said, we want them to sell us. Okay, so guy comes in, meticulous about everything, he's got all the qualifications, he's making $150,000 a year. Pulls up the public record of this and says, you need to sell us. Well, I'm making $150,000, why would you want me to take a cut? And you're going to say, well, because we're Bel Air Beach and we don't have that much money. That's what it comes down to. So And I said, well, why didn't you put a cap? Why didn't you let me know what a cap was? I would have gone through this procedure.
Well, I think we're taking the discussion a little too literally here with marketing and selling. I think it's like, let's talk to these individuals, and then once we see everybody, we go through round 2 of refining the list, we vote on that, narrow down the final interviews, and we come up with the final list. We offer jobs in that order. And when we ask what's your expected salary range, or we leave the discussion with, this is what our salary range is, they say, well, no, that's too low, then fine, we go to number 2. I mean, it's an iterative process.
But again, what is the salary range?
I think we will get to that before we make the final call.
Well, not only that, but once we see what the candidates are looking for, this is going to help us hone in on that salary range, because we may, I don't know, I'm not going to speculate what we're doing by trying to set a cap, but I think it's in our best interest to find out what the market is, what's actually happening in the market. And the only way we're going to find out is to interview some people and see what they're looking for. Let's go to the citizens right quick. Any comments? No? All right. Back to the council. Okay, first we need to vote on whether to amend with a salary cap. So let's just do a quick voice vote on that.
Roll call.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Notero,
No?
Councilmember Roberts,
Which one was this? I'm sorry.
This is to add the salary cap to the list of names we're handing to Maddie.
The salary range or the salary cap?
The salary, pretty much the cap.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
thank you. Councilmember Shirley,
No.
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
No.
Mayor Gaddis,
No. So that's 4-3. I get that right?
2.
Okay, so the motion dies now, the motion to amend dies. Now let's go back to the original motion, which is to send the 7 candidates, and I will go through the list right now. It's candidate number 11, which is Griffin. Candidate number 15, which is Cabelli. Candidate number 16, which is Mendez Saldivia. Candidate number 18, which is Crawford. Candidate 20, which is Riffler. 27 is Fabry. And 28 is Daniels. All right, so we just need to do another voice vote or a roll call vote. Patty, if you will.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Notero,
Yes?
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shirley,
Yes.
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Yes.
Mayor Gaddis.
Yes. City Clerk, if you don't mind, as soon as you come back, what day will you be back?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I'm sorry, I just changed my appointment that I had today so I could be here tonight. I didn't know we were going to do something tomorrow, I'm sorry.
No, no worries, no worries. We understand.
Okay.
So Tuesday morning, bright and early, would you please start contacting these candidates and seeing if they are still interested in interviewing with us, and then we will try to coordinate a Zoom meeting with each of the candidates. Preferably, we'd like to have it all on the same date, and if we go back to the original calendar date, I believe we have a regular council meeting on the 5th. On the 6th was supposed to be the candidate application deadlines. And then you had a deadline, and we did not have another meeting scheduled until July the 19th. And that was supposed to be the Zoom interviews. So that's what is that, about 2.5 weeks from now. I'm looking to see what day that is. July the 19th.
It's a Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday. That's what I have on the calendar, but we could certainly get them in faster if possible. Bear in mind also that we still are supposed to have a work session to discuss the budget before we have before we have the next regular budget meeting. So I'm trying not to just completely overwhelm us with meetings, but these are trying times right now. We have a lot on our plates, and we need to get through this so that things get back to normal. So tentatively, is the 19th good with everything for Zoom meeting interviews?
July 19th? Yes.
July the 19th. Good. Leslie? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
All right. Boyd? Jody? Jody?
She had to sign off.
Okay, yes, you sign up. I'm just going to, say that we at least have a forum and we can move forward. If it looks like maybe we can meet with all of them sooner than that, and the stars line up, then we'll do another special meeting and we will have a Zoom interview. But as it stands right now, yes.
Okay, the Zoom interview, that's pre-employment application and background check or
Yes,
post?
what this would be where we actually just face-to-face with each candidate, and we kind of fill them out and see what they're looking for and what their personalities are like, and try to narrow it down to possibly 2 candidates. Who knows, after those Zoom interviews, we may say, let's call these 2 guys in because they are our favorites, and we'll move forward. That's the only difference the only deviation between this and the original plan is we were looking for only 3 or 4 candidates for Zoom interviews. I have a feeling whenever you contact these 7, you'll be lucky if you get that many.
And the reason I ask is because to do the background checks, that's why I was trying to get the timeline on that. We have to have an employment application and their signed release. So are we looking, I just want to make sure I have it right.
Well, if they're already, Vice Mayor, yes.
A suggestion is that unless there's a conflict, is there any reason why you, as the head of the city, couldn't reach out and make that initial call? Hey, I'm Mayor Gaddis.
Try to set it up.
And look, here's where we're going with this thing. We've made the first pass through the list. Are you still interested? If you're still interested, this is your time frame. We will provide you with an email or a letter with further information. Keep it short, but I think if they have questions.
I did consider that, and the only reason why I didn't, and the council can say one way or the other, was that I didn't want anyone to think that I was being biased. I formulated my opinions before everyone else had the same opportunity to meet the candidates.
Or giving them the wrong impression, or by saying the wrong thing, causing them to self-select out. But I agree with that, should be a city employee, vice president.
I'll go with the direction, but we currently have, we have just voted to let Patty contact the candidates.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mind helping, but I would prefer you actually make the phone call.
And I think that'll be a short process, so, just an initial contact.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I just wanted to check on, are we trying to accomplish by, what we're trying to accomplish by the 19th. That doesn't include getting the actual applications and background checks, right? Or does it?
Okay, so background checks do cost money, and they take what you say about a week,
Yes.
okay? And I would say that out of the ones that you contact, if you have, let's just say all 7 say, well, yeah, I'll have that conversation with you, maybe hold off. But if it's 3 or 4, maybe you go ahead and get ahead of the process.
Okay, I just didn't know what you wanted by the 19th. Just, okay, all
But
right,
you
got
and I
it.
will have a discussion once you determine how many people are actually still entertaining the idea of working for Bel Air Beach.
Okay, that's perfect, yeah.
Like that,
Okay,
Vice Mayor?
So I understand that process, suggestion, possibly make a call together. I mean, you don't have to take an active part, but if there's a question that's asked, you're
It's not a bad idea.
Pardon?
That I would just be with you whenever you make the phone calls.
okay,
Is that okay?
yeah.
Yep, all right. Okay, so that takes care of item number 2. I'm going to open up the floor for comments. I know it's not our normal deal with a special meeting, but this is more of a kind of a work session anyway. So any council comments? Yes, Mr. Baker.
Last couple weeks ago, one of our residents was cited for a beach umbrella on the beaches, Bel Air Shores, but they were in the public wet sands. So apparently Bel Air Shores is enforcing their ordinance. Until this thing gets resolved, we have a big weekend coming up. I believe on the front sign outside, we should at least inform our residents, First Street and 19th Street, no shade allowed. There's going to be a lot of guests, there's going to be a lot of friends, there's relatives. They don't look at they don't look at the sign when they go on the beach. And I just want to avoid more litigation. I mean, it was in the Free Press today, I'll give Patty a copy.
Where is that from?
Free Press, the sign was supposed to inform the residents of current events, things that are happening. I think this would be a good thing to put on there.
Council? Any comments? Any yays, nays? Do you agree, disagree? We need some direction on the sign.
Is there any other information on that? I mean, I haven't seen that. Well, I guess I'm hearing from another source that the sheriffs have talked to people on the beach about that. And that a political statement is trying to be made, and where the officer is trying to de-escalate and just give kind of a warning, the next thing that happens is the person is basically begging the sheriff to issue a citation so that they have a statement.
No. Actually, I just pulled it up.
Like, to get the wrong date?
No, it was postmarked June 30. They talked in June 2020. That's when they started. They just give the background. They did go up to.
Well, now that I understand with you fully that a lot of sheriffs have tried to work things out, but now that they've ticketed somebody, I think as one of the commissioners said, the learning process is over. Now the citations, and they were actually happy that a citation was issued, and they want more citations issued. So, look, we have a sign out there. We want to be good neighbors with Bel Air Shores. Tell our residents they can't have a shade.
Actually,
I think, I'm going to comment on that right away. I don't believe that there is a single resident who is unaware of the policy of Bel Air Shore. It's been, it's been in the, it's been all over the press. It's been heavily debated. I would say that if anyone that's staying in our community walks across the street with an umbrella, they're either wanting to be written a citation or they're in a short-term rental. That would be my guess. But my initial thoughts on this are, I don't want to advertise one way or the other for Bel Air Shore.
And I gotta admit, I just read the story, and frankly, it comes off as an ad for the lawsuit. There's no mention about anybody being cited. Contact was made on June 28th. That just, the attorney's contacting them for comment.
Vice
That's all I
Mayor,
have.
You know, I would be more in favor of a blanket disclaimer on the city website, basically saying that just because you access the beach from the Bel Air Beach side through the Bel Air Beach access point, doesn't mean that you're on a Bel Air Beach portion of Bel Air City Beach. And any beach you access here, take a moment to familiarize yourself with the signs on any beach access point. That would blanket cover whichever city beach you're going to be sitting on. I can see a blanket disclaimer on our website for any beach access.
I don't trust it.
I would be okay with that. I just don't want to use the sign for that purpose. That's just my opinion. Any other comments on that? No? Okay, I appreciate everyone coming tonight. And were there any other comments?
There was one issue. Did everybody get an email
This
from
morning?
a resident regarding
A lien.
a code? Well, no.
Oh, different.
I got that one too, but there's another one regarding a code violation letter that went out regarding an Australian fine on a property.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't.
I did receive that, and my take on that was that our code is actually okay. I didn't see a problem, and I actually went over that with Kyle, and we spent about 20 minutes on the phone, back and forth, and then we had another conversation the next day, and he said, I've read it, and it looks to me like we're justified for enforcing that code.
Okay, so I don't know when that conversation took place, but I also looked at it, and I also had a meeting with Kyle, and I think it may have been a follow-on meeting, because in his email, he raises the point about waterfront properties appearing to have an exclusion to that. And if you go in and you look at the codes, it talks about, hey, in RL District Low, or District Medium, you cannot plant these things. But if you go into the waterfront section, there's a paragraph in there that says that if the owner removes an existing plant, or it's knocked down by an act of God, you cannot replant it. So there seems to be a discrepancy there, and he raises the issue is, hey, you know, is this something that was overlooked when we wrote these things, that he doesn't have any thing there, and that's all.
Yes,
I think he has a valid issue.
and I would say that the correction for that would be to have the exact same code for the waterfront properties, not the other way around. Otherwise, you restart the grandfather clock on all invasive species. They're growing all over our community. It's already there. It can live. And if it happens to get struck by lightning or you decide to cut it down, then you can't replace it with the same one. And that was my fear, is that if we level the playing field, we give the rest of the city the same. I don't know why that exemption exists, but it was specifically in a section for waterfront properties. They had a different set of rules, but we see that with everything. We see that with pie-shaped lots. They have different setbacks. We see different setbacks between properties in various areas of the community where everyone is not treated the same. And whenever the founders were putting this community together, they thought everything through. And I'm sure there was some reason specifically why they did that. But for the life of me, I don't even know why a Washingtonian palm is considered bad.
I mean, I'd have to look it over, but I don't think it was a complete exclusion for all invasive species. It was just 3 plants or something like that. The issue as I see it is, there's about 20 or 30 of these trees throughout Bel Air Beach.
Yes.
So by singling out one, where are we going with this?
Well,
They're not really trees, though, right?
They are trees, those big conifer,
They're not considered though a tree, I was told they're considered a bush. I agree with you, they're 100 feet in the air, you think it's a tree, but it's supposed to be.
so by name, they are named by species.
well, it's my understanding that the gentleman that owns the property is going to be compiling an extensive list of all violations within the community. And if they're not following code and they don't belong here, then code enforcement needs to treat everyone the same.
I agree with you.
Period. You don't just pick on one person, you start going systematically through the community. And unfortunately, the way that our code enforcement has worked in the past up until just recently was, it's the squeaky wheel next door, doesn't like something the neighbor's doing, files a complaint, and then the city responds. And it's been very rare where we've been proactive in code enforcement up until recently.
The only reason I said it's not, look, I'm not into the shrubs or whatever, but we have a code for bushes around homes and everything, guys, it has to be so high. I say it's a tree, okay? It looks like a tree, but I'm being told it's not classified as a tree, it's classified as a bush, which wouldn't that give us the ability to chop it down to what the max height is, like 6 feet? You know what I'm saying? You know where I'm going with
No, the
this?
invasive species list is very specific.
Yes.
And that is on the invasive species. It doesn't say, hey, this is a bush, or maybe it's a tree, or whatever. It names it by species, or said, this is on the Florida invasive species list. And then if you go into the codes, it talks about it's actually about water consumption is what it's really all about, saying these invasive species are problematic in that respect, and you're not allowed to have these things. Well, in one section of the codes, it talks about it in like 66-32, the planning of these things in residential District 1 and District 2. Well, that's basically what it says. The planting of Washingtonian palms, Australian pine, Brazilian pepper trees, plum trees shall not be permitted in District 2. But then it goes on the waterfront and say existing trees located on waterfront property within the city, which are not in conformity with the provisions of these sections. Just let it lie until the hurricane blows it down.
Yeah, well, or it slows it down on what is what, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what the neighbor that raised this issue, because I think it was Elsa that came up last year, threw some of the branches into his book, right through his screen.
Yes, I did hear that.
And I walk by at every meeting I go to, and like I said, maybe it's a tree, okay? But he's saying, no, it's not a tree. Again, I think he did say there was, I forget how many numbers he said it was. It was a large amount just in the city.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will, I'll say it now, and I've said it many times in the past, there are many trees and hedges and shrubs and whatever all throughout the community that are completely off the chart. Anything that's completely blocking a neighbor's driveway to where they can't get out without nosing out on the street, where their glass is already in the road before you can see what's coming. That's a problem. And some of these trees, they're hanging really low and they're actually over the traffic. We definitely have a problem with landscaping. I am all for enforcing it as much as possible. So that's my 2 cents on that. And if this council agrees that we have inconsistency, it's something that we should look at, but I think it's something where we should lean more towards enforcement rather than leniency on these problems, because Bel Air Beach is a beautiful community, and the last thing we want is a few people to make it look bad.
Well, and another thing is I wrote to this former city manager and the interim city manager about a tower being erected. I believe people contacted you about it. It's not an antenna, it is a tower. And I think it's crystal clear you can't have one between houses here.
It's worse. It's beyond a tower. It's a danger. And the reason why is because it has homemade mechanics to where it becomes cantilever in the
Right.
backyard. So this thing that's supposed to be installed by permit by a licensed professional is being raised and lowered and then leaning on its side. And it's a full-blown tower that has three
No,
legs.
see, the
three
triangle
legs.
towers. Because sometimes I go, it's not up, sometimes, now I understand.
It's
why
been
there.
down, but it only has like a 3/16 cable to pull it up, and who knows, at inspection of the cable, you know what I'm saying, it's coming halfway up.
It's a hybrid, a homemade hybrid is what I would call it. And whether the concrete pad in the ground is good or not, and can sustain it. We have ordinances in place that say you can't do that. What happens is the waters get muddied on enforcement because the FCC says you will allow anyone in your community to have an antenna, but we're not preventing them from having an antenna. We're just saying if you're going to have an antenna, it needs to be within reason for aesthetics and safety. And even the ordinance we have in place concerning antennas says you can only put it on top of an existing structure. So erecting a tower out there does not fall under the existing structure, and raising a tower does require permitting, and it's supposed to go the normal process. Based upon our code, it would never get through permitting because it's on a residential property rather than on community lands or something that's designated for that type of purpose.
Plus his pad that he poured, it isn't within the setback limits. It violates violence, but
Well, this is, what I would like everyone to do that's involved in this is to compile your data. If you have anything, emails, whatever, and send it to the city attorney. Because I want him to look at the FCC code, look at our code, and then look at the evidence presented to him and let him decide whether we're incorrect and we need to do something about our ordinance, or if we are correct and we need to do something to the
I
violation.
think your assumption, I'm not saying assumption, but in a bad way, I think you nailed it right on. It's not legally allowed, so I agree with you 100%. Can I just, you brought up about that Patrick Strong contacting everybody. I don't understand how a $100 bounce check can go up to $20-some thousand. I do believe we discussed some.
It's not a bounce check. What
Yeah.
it started was it went to court and the justice said that I believe there's a fine of $1,500 or $2,500 that was awarded that day. And since then, it's been incremental because of the interest, $70 a day. But no, it doesn't go down. It's not $100.
Yeah.
He kind of conveniently forgot the $1,500 or
And
$2,500.
that's what I'm saying, so how do we resolve this? Because there was an offer, and I guess we all got the emails?
Yeah, I talked to
You got
Kyle.
one?
I didn't,
Kyle-
it just come today?
Yeah, I came early
I
this morning.
asked Kyle to talk to the city attorney and to go over the file about what was the initial, what drove this was I believe it's the magistrate's ruling.
Right.
And here's the amount, and you will pay it. And they didn't pay it. Therefore, he started, the fines on top of it. It wasn't a $100 check. It's relatively robust.
And the last time we had one of these, we handed that off to the city attorney, and he actually came up with a game plan of, okay, this is acceptable, I would advise you to make this offer for settlement. And it actually worked out. I would recommend doing the same thing again.
Is that where it's at now, Mr. Mayor? That,
This is not the same person.
yeah, okay, what I'm saying, do we get that? Because it sounds like they want to get rid of the house or sell the house.
That's probably what it is. They're probably wanting to cash in, and they can't do it because there's this massive lien on
Yeah.
them.
So how do we resolve this? Without paying the $29,000?
No, it's not, we're talking $2,500. The key is you gotta let it work through, it's the city attorney, there's a magistrate's ruling, that letter was not complete. They told his thoughts about where he thinks he stands, and it doesn't jive with what I've talked to Kyle in the files on that project.
I would say that we probably, right now, our city attorney is on vacation, but he'll be back next week. He'll be here on the 5th, and during council member comments or during the city attorney report, we should bring that up and just make him aware of what's going on, maybe give it a copy of the letter, and let's see what he advises us to do. Certainly, he's going to know better than we do on how to address these issues. All right, any other comments before we adjourn?
Happy 4th, by the way, be safe out there.
Absolutely.
And no fireworks.
Okay. That being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All right, I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much, everyone.